UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Engage.
78 years have passed since the days of the original USS Enterprise. Now a new Galaxy starship has been designed.
Transporter Chief, beam our listeners aboard. Welcome to Galaxy Class, a Star Trek The Next Generation podcast on the United Federation of Podcast Network. I am Diplomatic Standard Bearer Kevin Scharf. With me is Counselor Amy Nelson and the head of Astrophysics, Joe Keegan. Hello, welcome aboard.
I've kind of relinquished my headship of astrophysics. I am now the chief of bike maintenance.
Bike maintenance?
Yeah, like bicycle. Like a push bike. Because I got a bike this week. I invoked international salvage rights. And I took the bike that had been left in our communal back garden, and I decided it was mine. It was a previous neighbour that left years ago and just left it, and it was getting old and rusty. So I took it, and I'm going to fix it up. So I'm learning how to fix a bike, and it's very complicated.
You are a man of many, many talents. Every time I talk to you, you're working on some new kind of project.
The number of projects I have is increasing, but none of them are getting finished because I always find the new shiny thing that interests me. Oh, no.
Well, that is a problem.
So, Joe, is it a road bike or a dirt bike, off-road bike?
It's a wheeled bike.
It has wheels?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, actually, it's a Giant Escape 1 from 2015. I looked it up online and it retailed for £500, which is maybe close to $600.
Nice.
I'm excited to learn. I'm going to get a basket for it and tassels, like streamers for the wind, and also stabilizers so I don't fall over.
Oh. When we were kids, you used to put clip hockey cards to the back so that they would click through the spokes. So you had that cool clickety sound. You probably don't have hockey cards, but I don't know. Do you have football cards or something like that you could maybe put in the wheels to make that kind of noise?
I will fashion something to do that.
Perfect.
Because that's another project of mine. But we should let Amy say hello also, because I've been talking about
Amy,
bike maintenance.
Are you working on any special projects this week, Amy?
I'm working on keeping my sanity of finishing my first week of teaching online. Listeners, we are 100% virtual. I'm behind the screen all day. But really enjoying this new challenge.
Maybe you can give quizzes like Wesley took when he applied for Starfleet. You know, just have the tests pop up on your students' screens and, that could work.
I do. It's a challenge to try and overcome the urge that students have to cheat and to get 100% instead of gain learning. So we're working with them on that. Yeah.
You incorporate Star Trek into your lessons a lot?
I try as much as I can, yeah.
And your students are fine with that?
They roll their eyes at me, and most of them don't get my references, but that's okay.
Or they say that Star Wars is better?
Yes. Every day I have one kid. We have a good relationship because I like University of Utah football and he likes Brigham Young football and they're arch rivals. And he likes Star Wars and I like Star Trek. So we give each other a hard time. And it's the second year that I've had the students. So we have good history. Fun. But it's all in fun.
You've got that relationship. Normally when students say Star Wars is better, I just respond with either how much Star Trek have you seen in order to be able to judge it? And they say none. And I was like, well, shut up. Or I go with, Star Wars is for simple people. So.
Oh. I always say, yeah, I like Star Trek too, but Star Trek is better.
You like Star Wars too, but Star Trek is better.
Yep.
That you said, I like Star Trek too, but Star Trek is better.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, because it's all Star Trek.
It's got stars in it. Yeah. Nice.
Well, after we're done recording today, I'm going to a movie in a cinema I haven't.
What is that?
I know. How crazy is that? They're reopened. They're selling 26 tickets in a theater that would normally hold 200 people. So it's very physically distanced, and you have to buy the tickets in advance. So I'm going to see a new movie. We're going to see The New Mutants this afternoon, and I'm quite excited to go to a movie theater.
Is The New Mutants an X-Men movie?
It's an X-Men movie, yeah. It was actually finished like two years ago, and it never got released, so it's just sort of being dumped right now. But I'm like, I need to see it. I loved The New Mutants, the comic book, when I was a kid, so...
Wow, I only ever go to the movies when it's like a superhero movie, and so there's lots that I'm excited about seeing. So The New Mutants and Wonder Woman 84, and
the Black Widow.
And the new Dune. Mm-hmm. How do you guys say it? Because I always say June, like the month. Dune. Yeah, I'm excited about that in November. So.
Well, you're lucky because our theaters still have not opened up here in Vegas. So.
Oh. Soon, it'll happen. Well, let's check the communications array to see if we have any comments from our listeners.
Logs accessed.
So Vera Bible, who followed us from the other podcast on the other network, says, as much as I enjoy Symbiosis, any episode that includes Kaylar is the episode I'm going to choose. She brings such a great energy to the episode she's in, and I still haven't gotten over the fact that she was killed. I love this bracket idea, and I'm already looking forward to your next installment. Well, here you have it. When you're listening to this is our next installment. So thanks, Vera. Thanks for following us.
Yeah, I think she summed it up as we did. If Kaylar's in it, it's got to win. All right. We have Joshua DeVries says, just listened. Love the episode. And I totally agree with the episode you chose. Thank you, Joshua. I'm glad to hear that Emissary is among the fan favorites. We also have Jim Stoffel, who writes, The Emissary is still one of my favorite Trek episodes of all time. Well, that's some pretty high praise for The Emissary. Thank you, Jim.
Sounds like we got the listeners on side with this choice. Let's see if that continues after today's episode. Chrissie De Clerck-Szilagyi, she commented about the references we made to the Just Say No program, and quoted us saying, Reagan always had jelly beans on his desk. Oh, like Lorca and his fortune cookies. She said, yes, that is definitely the correct comparison. In the thread on Facebook, Chrissy went on to give us a lot more information about the Just Say No program and how it worked and what effect it had on society of the 1980s. And it's a really fascinating read. And if you haven't seen it, it is in one of the threads on the UFP Facebook page, and I recommend you take a look at it. She knows what she's talking about.
Yes, she does. I learned so much about it, and there's even posted the Just Say No commercial with This Is Your Brain. This is your brain on drugs, the egg in the frying pan, and makes her comments about that. So listeners, go to Federation Council Chambers for our thread on episode 3 for Galaxy Class, and you'll see the great comments that she made there. Thank you so much, Chrissy.
This is the captain. Senior officers will report to my ready room immediately.
Well, let's get into our next Batleth battle then. Today we are looking at the Masterpiece Society versus Rightful Heir. Two very different episodes, but I think there may be some themes that we can discuss. If by some chance you missed episode 3 where we introduced this feature, a Batleth Battle is where we take 2 random episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, discuss them, put them head to head in a tournament bracket, and we decide which one is the best one, and we'll move on to the next round. So I'm really excited to take a look at these 2 episodes. So Amy, why don't you kick us off with the Masterpiece Society?
Okay, so this is a Troy episode, and listeners, you can't see, but I am wearing my Counselor Troy pin today because of this. So we have a planet, I'm sorry I don't remember the name of it, but
it was called Moab.
Moab, which is a city in Utah,
Really?
Great mountain biking. Arches National Park is there.
I've got a bike.
I highly recommend it.
I could go
Yes,
to Utah,
you do.
go to Moab, and
you could just bring it on over. It won't cost you anything.
Can I cycle to there from here? But maybe no.
And so they are a genetically chosen and engineered population for generations. And the leader is Aaron Connor. And their planet is on the path of this major asteroid. And so they have to try and figure out what are they going to do? Are they going to evacuate? Are they going to, in the end, it's the idea that Geordi has from his visor that saves and disrupts the motion of the asteroid so that it goes 1.2 degrees further to the left or right, I can't remember. And then they are saved. But because they had visitors into their society, everything is now a big mess. And Connor and Troy get together. So that would be my summary. Mm-hmm. Did I miss any big points?
There was the scientist who wants more out of her life than being stuck on a planet where everyone is almost genetically perfect, who learns her lesson about how people with disabilities can contribute to society after her work with Geordi. I think that's a pretty major part of that episode as well.
Yeah, definitely, because their presence there just disrupts everything that they have believed and thought.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what I think is most notable about this episode in terms of its production and release? I was on Memory Alpha and it premiered in February 92 in the US, but the UK premiere wasn't until March 95.
Whoa.
What?
3 years, 1 month, 5 days. Which is how things happened back in those days when I was a teenager. Nowadays, you maybe have to wait a day and then it comes out streaming on Netflix or whatever. But back then, you had to wait years. Mm-hmm. And there was no internet. Or there was internet, but it was terrible. What he didn't really mention was all the cool science in this episode.
There was a lot of science.
Cool stellar core fragment, and there was a genetically engineered society. I know you mentioned that. Just that idea of being able to gene editing is a really cool technology that we have nowadays. It's in its infancy, and we don't really understand the ramifications of editing genes and how in a few generations' time that'll change the host organism or what effect that has on other genes. So yeah, loads of full of cool science. I love it.
You know, it was interesting because previously in TNG, they came across a society who also was genetically chosen and stuff, but didn't have a large enough gene pool. And so they tried to still write the DNA of Riker in them. I mean, so there's a couple episodes. But in this episode, they make it very clear. They're like, well, we have a large enough population to remain stable. And I noticed that they said that to sort of set it apart from the previous episodes, you know, so we know that this society can continue and, you know, in their minds should. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I agree. It's, you know, genetic engineering, and you hate to use the word eugenics, but that's what this is. Mm-hmm. It's been a plot line in Star Trek since Khan, right? So I think they needed to find a way to make these people sympathetic while still having the same issue of this genetic superiority, quote unquote superiority. And I think they found that line. You had because we always talk about the monoculture, right? Like, while this is a colony of humans, there were people on both sides of the issue in this episode too, which was nice. Not everybody on the planet. We weren't just dealing with one person, and we got that was the opinion of the entire planet. There were people who were like, no, we need to break our society so that we can learn more new things. And then there were people who were like, no, we set up these rules for a reason, and we have to stick with what we started.
Would they have wanted to move away and kind of break their society and the status quo if it wasn't for the intervention of the Enterprise arriving to save them?
No, because I think they were living in ignorance. They didn't know that there was more, right? They had this biosphere around them, and I think they truly believed that they were living their potential. They didn't know, they thought that their science that they were doing was amazing, right? Hannah was like, yeah, I was doing this, but now I see what you can do. And now I feel like we're in the dark ages. You know, it's just, you don't know what's out there until you know.
It's really interesting that you say like they were in the dark ages. This episode feels like early TNG almost, in the way the way that the colony is stylized. It just feels very very like too perfect. In that way, in early TNG, everything was like immaculate, and there were plants in the corridors, and it felt like a hotel. And then later seasons, it got a bit almost grittier, not grittier, but a bit less perfect. And I think that's
more lived in.
Yeah. I think this episode kind of shows us TNG earlier on, and I think that's why I like it.
Well, interesting you bring up that it's like a hotel, and it was mentioned because Aaron Connor tells Troy, you know, that he would build a hotel for her just so she could visit. And I get why Troy would want to come and visit as an empath. Like if everyone is feeling accomplished and doing what they're supposed to be doing, like for her and her mental vacation, yes, this Moab place would be the place. So I have a question for you. What would be the name of the hotel that Aaron Connor builds for Deanna Troi?
That's a good question.
The Love Palace.
Right?
That's all I've got.
I know. I was like, what would he name that? Yeah, I was like Troy's Treasures or something.
Empathic Inn.
There you go. Yeah.
I've got something. Do I have something? The Moab Marriott.
There actually is a Moab Marriott there.
Okay. Cool.
No, I just really enjoyed the relationship that Connor and Troy had. It's one of my favorites of Troy's. I mean, obviously I love Worf and Riker the most. But for a one-off, boyfriend of the week, I really feel that their connection is sincere and that there's a lot that they have in common. And I can just see their attraction. And I found it very interesting, out of all the one-offs relationships that everyone on the crew has had, why is it that Troy's the only one who feels compelled to talk to Picard about her discretion, that she's done something wrong? She's the only one confessing, when there's a lot of times Riker should be confessing and owning up to his mistakes and unprofessionalism.
Oh, I could not agree more. When I saw that scene, I was like, why in the world is Deanna saying this to Picard? This is not her fault. This is nothing to do with her. And Riker has his girl of the week on every planet in the quadrant. So why did they make the female character apologize for her sexuality? That is, I guess it's early 90s. Like, we're still in that 80s kind of mindset, I don't think that scene would happen today.
Yeah, it's a double standard.
It's an incredible double standard. And, when you're watching these things with a more critical eye, that is the scene in this episode that jumped right out at me. Deanna apologizing for her sexuality and her emotions. Yeah, that made me angry.
I don't think that really occurred to me. Is there maybe something, did she tell Picard because she thought it might have had a bigger impact on the mission in terms of affecting this isolated culture?
She definitely did. But I mean, when the thing that comes to my mind is Riker in Angel 1. I mean, that's like the first example that is most egregious, and that, he's interfering with their culture and has that relationship, but yet he never apologizes. So yeah, I saw that and I reacted the same way as you, Kevin. I mean, that's why I'm bringing it up. However, if I were to look at it and try and put a positive spin on it, I really feel that Troy is taking ownership for her actions, and she has integrity and she values the mission more. And so this is, unfortunately, information that Picard does need to know. She tells him in private in the turbo lift, and because Picard needs to understand where Connor is at with him being the diplomat and the spokesperson for the society there. So I feel that it is needed, and I get angry that it's only Troy in the series that has to apologize for her sexuality, but I believe her to have integrity, and her professionalism is going above and beyond, and therefore she's taking ownership for her actions. That's my positive spin on it, and I recognize and look up to her for owning it. More so than the other people on the... Just makes Troy even that better of a character.
So could you argue that Riker on Angel 1 was a bit reckless and wasn't responsible?
The other episode where Riker almost destroyed an entire civilization because he couldn't keep it in his pants was the planet where all the people were one-gendered, and he fell in love with the person who wanted to be female. Like, he almost... The outcast, yeah. He almost started a civil war on that planet because of his proclivities. I don't believe he ever apologized for that.
Well, that's a difficult one, isn't it? I never saw Star Trek as being sexist like that. But obviously the production's just, it was around at that time, and that's kind of what happened on TV. Doesn't make it right, but it's interesting looking through from the future back to these times. Because I know, like, nowadays, term Black Lives Matter, and I know, like, Scotland, as part of the British Empire, Glasgow, where I'm from, was a big seaport, and they used to ship slaves via Glasgow en route to America. So there's lots of streets in Glasgow and lots of buildings that have slave owners' names still attached to them. There's discussion about changing streets in Glasgow that have been there for literally hundreds of years. Do you change the name? Or do you pull down statues of people because they were slave owners? Do you pull down these statues because you don't want to celebrate folk that did bad things in the past? Do you don't want to whitewash the past, but likewise you don't want to celebrate the wrongs that were done? Mm-hmm.
We're going through the same thing here in Canada too. With there's a major street in Toronto that there's talk of changing the name because the person who it's named after was not a very nice person. So, these things, it's really good that we're grappling with these things as a society right now. I think it's making us a better people.
Yeah.
It was interesting because I saw my cousin posted on Facebook sort of that same discussion, and it's like, well, has Black Lives Matter, have they, rebuilt any recreation centers? Are, homes getting better? Are the streets better? What's the evidence of it? And I'm like, at this point in our society's time, we're not to that point of having physical evidence. We need to change our mindset. So all of the work that's being done is how we're reviewing things. And then we can get to, yes, building up poor neighborhoods, supporting and building better infrastructure and getting, more community centers up and helping the underprivileged. Like, that's going to come, but we're going through the hard work by asking these questions right now. So it's definitely, I feel progress is happening. Yes, slow, but I'm hopeful that we will eventually change our mindset and be better. So another theme that I found was very interesting, and I wanted to ask you guys a question. So we have this society that is showing us two different reactions to having the Enterprise crew come down to their society, right? We have Hannah and Aaron that are feeling the excitement. They're intrigued. They're, they're very curious about the new and what's out there. And then we have others who is personified with Martin, who's, there to deliberate and interpret the founding constitution and what the founding fathers want. And he, responds out of fear and hesitation. So I think that is an amazing concept. And like, how do you deal with new things that happen in your life?
Oh, good question. Depends what they are. And I think it depends on how I initially perceive them. Like, 'cause there's some things like, educational initiatives, and at face value, sometimes it just feels like, they're trying to get us to do more work. And I'm like, okay, I'll give that a buy and put that to the one side because it doesn't interest me. I think it depends. Am I initially interested in it? Is there something that captures my attention or my imagination?
It depends what we're talking about. When I travel, I want to see new things. I want to do things I've never done before. I jump in with some caution. There are lines I won't cross, but I want to see new things. But in my life, I like things to be stable and not change. Too much change is chaos. So you need to find the balance. I think in the case of this episode, the society, I think they were becoming stagnant because they had felt that from the beginning that they had created perfection. So why even strive for anything more? If you don't have any issues, you can't improve yourself. So I think that is a lesson that's learned in here too. And I think that's a theme that runs through Star Trek, and it has since the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. It's showcased very well in this episode. I feel like, for example, Joe, you brought up education, and I'm teaching 100% online. So all of my teaching strategies that I have learned and have been successful with, developing relationships, checking for understanding, like all of those tools, I can't use anymore. So when I found out that we had to be, 100% online, I had a choice, and I chose to look at it as this is a new experience for me to expand how I teach, to get better teaching skills, to learn the tools and the software and all the technology that goes along with teaching online. And I feel that has put me in a better headspace as to, I see a lot of other teachers who are complaining, and, I think that if you can make that choice and recognize this is something new, it's going to scare the crap out of me, but how can I make it positive in my life so we don't get the negative and stuff like that? So I really applaud Hannah and Aaron for making that choice and being intrigued and curious and wanting to experience the new, because that's something that I try to do in my life as well.
I think the difference between types of change is, Kevin, you said chaotic change. And I think chaotic change is just change that either comes too fast or change that you aren't in control of. I think the change that is good is the change that you are in control of. And I think it comes down to, for you, Amy, that you had a choice. Could you let the changes to kind of your teaching be chaotic or be positive, and you went down the positive route? This was a challenge that you were going to accept, and you were going to better yourself through that decision.
I mean, because it was completely out of my control. Yeah. I mean, I was told, district, state, superintendent says.
But you still had the choice. You could go negative and say, this is chaotic change, I don't like it, and you could kind of shut down. Or you could say, no, I'm a professional, this is a challenge, I'm going to learn new things through it. I think 2020 has just been full of chaotic change for most of us. From when we closed schools in the end of March, to teaching online, to then planning to go back to blended learning with part-time timetables and like half the students in, half the students out, learning online, all sorts of weird and wonderful things going on, to then coming back in August and it's just back to normal. Everybody in. To then on Monday, this coming Monday, everybody's to wear masks in school, in corridors and open spaces. So yeah, it's just constant change, but you have to be in the right mindset to accept it and go, okay, I'm going to, because it's 2020, I'm going to take one day at a time and get to the end of the year, and hopefully the zombies don't come, or the murder hornets, or some giant alligator doesn't swim across the sea and try and eat me, or, I don't know, alien invasion, or asteroid impact, or something else that 2020 could bring.
Joe, just believe in the tranquility of the giant koala that the universe rests on its back.
Is so that funny. Why I smell eucalyptus all the time?
Yeah, exactly.
I was wondering. Cool. So I wanted to ask about Aaron. What does Troy see in him? I honestly don't see it. I do see it in terms of she's attracted to him as a person. But like I'm going with the vein, the physical. I don't find him physically attractive. It looks like his mum combed his hair. It's true. And I just think they're all very, like, looking at their clothes, they're all very, is it kind of two-tone?
Oh yeah, that's very TNG. Like you said, early TNG. And it's surprising that this is season 5,
Yeah, and I
right?
think that's what I said. Yeah. It looks like early TNG because of what they're wearing.
Yep.
But they are a society who felt they reached perfection 200 years ago. So why would they have? Why would they change their look? So they're
why would they need fashion?
The other question is, if you're a society who is cut yourself off from the rest of the galaxy, why do you need a diplomat?
Well, because they have their population that
I guess
needs a leader. Every society, every group is going to have a leader.
Okay. Yes. He's like the mayor of the town, and one of his skills is diplomacy. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I get it. Is Moab in the Federation? I wondered that.
Yes, they are, because in the end, there is a great prime directive speech, that Picard gives. And yes, they are in the Federation.
There's a distinction there. Are they a member of the Federation, or are they within the boundary of the Federation?
No, they've been out of contact with the Federation for 200 years, yeah.
Okay.
But they're still a member, because that's why, I forget who he was talking to. I think it was Riker. And he says, Picard is doubting, this is, we've really broken the prime directive. And Riker's like, no, they're members of the Federation. This is totally within our purview.
Because they are human.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then I was thinking, obviously it's been 200 years. So if you go back 200 years, you kind of get to kind of eugenics wars time. So they must have left before genetic engineering was outlawed.
That's good to put that in the timeline. Okay. Yeah. Can I just ask one more thing? I know we've been talking a lot about it. So at the very end, Aaron Connor tells Troy, I am in love with you, Deanna Troi, and I will always be. When I heard that, it melted my heart, but it made me think of The Perfect Mate. Mm-hmm. And is that imprint, because he's genetically engineered, is he seriously going to always love Deanna Troi? I don't know. It was just weird that The Perfect Mate popped into my mind. Mm. You know how Picard made that imprint on, what's her name? I forget.
Was it Kamala?
Yeah. Do you think that it's like that it's an imprint, or it's just something you say?
I think there will be somebody else in the colony that is made for him, that he maybe just hasn't met yet or encountered in that way.
How many people live in this colony? It wasn't so many that they couldn't beam them all onto the Enterprise.
I'm going to say 4,305.
That's a good number.
I think so. I think that makes sense to me. I'd made it up, but...
Large enough gene pool to remain stable.
That's going to be a specific number, though.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, even if one person, like Hannah, wanted to leave, that was going to disrupt everything.
So it must be a pretty shallow pool.
Okay, I just want to say one thing. If anybody watches this episode again, what I want you to do is watch the first discussion the Enterprise has. So Captain Picard has with Aaron, with Martin floating around in the background. But I can't help but see that Martin's in the foreground, but he's tiny. He looks like now when you get signed performances of something, like the news is on and there's a wee tiny person down in the corner doing sign language. Watch it again. Watch Martin, and he looks like a tiny person just floating in the foreground.
So he's out of proportion. Okay, I did not pick up on that.
The one thing I wanted to mention about this episode is I liked the scenes with Geordie and Hannah working together. I really appreciated Geordie getting to be really excited about solving the problem and the science and the technology. And I thought his one line was a little ham-fisted about, my disability is going to save your perfect colony, but that really is what happened. So I think that was another really interesting focus of this episode was what happens when you focus your diversity, right?
Right, and I love his question that he asked Hannah when he says, "Who gives you the right to decide if I should be here?" And I'm just like, yeah. And, goes on to say necessity is the mother of invention and there's infinite possibilities. And you are, basically pigeonholing yourself. You're putting on blinders. You're not opening yourself up because of that. And it is, again, a great concept. And yes, we should talk more about it with Geordie.
That's a really good point. It's a bit like the human immune system, isn't it? Where your immune system from a young age needs to be exposed to things in order to be able to cope with whatever it's exposed to in the future.
Build up its defenses.
Exactly. And if it's too perfect, like this society, then it won't be able to adapt or deal with the new things. Like we see, they can't cope with the stellar core fragment. They will be destroyed. And it takes those, we say, imperfections that Geordie has and the technology that's had to be created around that in order for them to be able to save themselves. So you shouldn't have too clean a house, because if you have too clean a house, then you'll become sick. That's my excuse for not tidying up.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, use it.
Trust me, I have. Well, do we have anything else to say about the Masterpiece Society, or should we move on to Rightful Heir?
We better move on.
Yeah, it's been quite a while.
So, Joe, do you want to give us a quick summary of Rightful Heir?
Okay, so Worf becomes a bit of a hippie and tries to have like some kind of vision quest, like a loser, and gets chewed out by Captain Picard, and then gets to go on holiday, finds a long dead Klingon, brings him back to the ship, and like loads of Klingon stuff happens. Essentially. And then the guy with the big eyes that we've met at STLV, Robert O'Reilly, who's really, really cool. Very scary. Yeah, he's on board, which is cool. People know that I am not a fan of Klingon episodes. I'm just not a huge fan.
I hear and understand.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of struggle with these, kind of this monolithic culture that they create. And I also struggle with the whole Klingon spirituality. And I think it's the one downside to Deep Space Nine for me is the whole Bajoran spiritualism. Yeah, I get that people like it because they have religious affiliations and they like the fact that Deep Space Nine incorporated religion, but it's not in my wheelhouse. So I respect people for enjoying the reflection of themselves they see in episodes, but it's just not my cup of tea, I suppose. So, the real synopsis, without me being flippant, Worf, as a child, had a vision in a cave of Kahless. And Kahless told him, apparently, that he would do something that no other Klingon would do. So that led Worf to have some kind of incensed seance ritual in his quarters. And then he was late for duty. He didn't go up to the bridge to stand for 8 hours. A bit inhumane because everybody else gets to sit down. Don't like that idea. Then Captain Picard let him go to the monastery on Borath to try and seek what he was looking for. And lo and behold, Kahless turns up. He takes Kahless back to the Enterprise with a small entourage, and then the Klingon High Council come because they're like not happy with this disruption to the Empire. Lots of things happen, and then it turns out that Kahless is a clone and he's been created by the Duras family to try and destabilise the Empire so they can seek power for themselves. What do you guys think?
I didn't think that was the Duras
family. I thought it was.
That's Korath.
No,
Korath is the spiritual priest.
Where did that get Juras from?
I don't know. Listeners.
I apologize, listeners.
You know, when I always think of a Klingon episode, this is the one my brain goes to. I love Worf's seeking his spirituality and testing and the whole fight between, you know, is this really him? What is this leap of faith that's required of me? How can I have faith if the science doesn't back it up? Like, I love that dilemma almost as much as, the one where Worf kills Doros, you know.
Yeah, that one.
Sins of the Father. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those two are just like my favorite. But when I think about Worf and Klingon, I always go to his spiritual journey here on Boreth. I love Rightful Heir. I have questions and themes that I want to bring out. But Kevin, what do you think?
Well, I think that on Star Trek The Next Generation, religion was almost a taboo subject. Mm-hmm. And the only character you can explore spirituality through at all of any of the main cast is Worf. So if you want to do an episode that explores spirituality, you have to use Worf. And so that is what the writers did here. They said, we want to talk about almost faith versus science and how faith works in a modern setting. We can't use any of our regular Starfleet characters, so we have to use Worf. You've got a butt.
But what was interesting to that is that they use data, right? This machine, this pure science, right? And Data's the one that makes this leap of faith, that chooses to believe that he is a person and that shares that with Worf. And so to your point, exactly, they're not going to explore it with any of the humans because that's going to be too hit on the nose, but they're exploring this idea of faith and spirituality through a Klingon, non-human, and through a machine, Data. Yeah. That is a great point, Kevin.
So I think as Klingon episodes go, I'm sort of in Joe's camp, not the hugest fan of the Klingon episodes. But this one's a pretty good one. One thing that this episode does is, you know, Next Generation is not a show that was really known for its continuity, but this episode really does pick up on Worf's journey after Birthright. It opens with him conflicted about what he told the people, the kids from the Birthright planet. In the great scheme of Star Trek, this episode it builds off of things that have happened, and it also is a starting point for other storylines that are going to come down the line. Does that mean I liked it? I may need to be convinced, but it's important.
So let me ask you some questions because we're not deciding yet. We need to get into it. So one thing that I found interesting, and sort of, Joe, to your point, and maybe sort of backing up sort of why you don't like the religious tone, is because when I was watching and they were saying like Worf is like, you need something larger to believe in. Like Korth is talking to Worf, you know, that he needs to believe in Kahless. And he says, that's what gives meaning to your life. And I was like, well, hold on. Is that the only way to gain meaning in your life is to have faith in a higher power? I found it very stark. I don't know. I felt like almost a slap in the face. Is that the way that you have meaning, is because you have a belief, because you have a faith? I'm not going to say in what, but would you say that that is how your life has meaning?
I would say that in the context of the show, no, because most of the characters do not profess any kind of faith. For many people, faith is a very, very important part of their life, and they would absolutely say yes. I don't know where I come down on that spectrum, but I feel like on the whole, the show comes down on the no side, that your work, that your passion for exploration, that your relationships with other people can be what is the most important and driving thing in your life, and that a faith in a higher power is not necessarily that which guides you, you know. I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I know that we have listeners of many faiths and that faith is important to a lot of people. But I feel like the show is secular. And that was a deliberate choice made by the original creators. And this episode is an exploration of that.
I was brought up Catholic, and I feel Catholicism, I don't know, just like anywhere else in the world, I'm sure people have had very good experiences with it, but there was an oppressiveness to it. And I want to use the word abusive, but it wasn't like there was no physical or sexual abuse. None of those things happened. But we had this really old priest, and he was terrifying as a child. And he told us that if we didn't go to church or do confession or do anything, then the things that you're supposed to do, then God would come and rip us apart. And we were 7. And that stayed with me forever. And I'm like, I don't need that. So I've kind of, anytime religion's mentioned, yes, I'm respectful, but I always think religion is this thing that tries to control, and I don't like it. So that's where I'm coming from when I see spirituality happening. Even I'm thinking like Babylon 5 had this really interesting early episode where they were to show each species were to showcase the religion of their home planet. And like the Narn and the Minbari and the Centauri all did theirs, kind of very like Klingons. They had this monolithic culture with one religion, and then it came the humans' turn, and the captain was it captain or was it commander? Commander,
it was Commander
Jeffrey Sinclair, wasn't it?
Sinclair, yeah.
Yeah, he basically got everybody from one of each from all of Earth's religions and lined them up and introduced them like, this is a Christian, this is a Buddhist, this is he's Catholic, he's Jewish, he's Muslim, and there was a line of like 50 people lined up to showcase Earth's religions. And I was like, yeah, it was a very nice point and showed how diverse Earth culture was, but it did nothing for me. It didn't speak to me in any way. I liked the point that we're making.
So when Worf is in Borath and, you know, trying so hard to see Kahless and to have this vision, and then Kahless appears to him, and Korath goes in and was like, stop your doubting. Like, why are you even doubting? And, you know, you came here to ask questions. Well, receive the answers. And so I was wondering, do you think that you can believe something so much that your mind fills in the blanks to form answers to make it logical to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Your brain does all sorts of really, really strange things that you're completely unaware of. Like, it fills in details. Like, I'm thinking, I don't know why it's coming up, but like smell, how it can activate memories. I'm thinking about how your brain adds in details that aren't there. You know, all these visual like pictures you'll look at, like stare at the dot for 10 minutes and then look at the other picture for 5 minutes and then stare at the ceiling, and you'll see a full colour image of a little girl carrying a balloon. Those kind of things where your brain is tricked through your visual senses into seeing something that isn't necessarily there. So yeah, your brain definitely does things. I think your brain is the ultimate computer, isn't it? It's supremely programmable. You can program it to believe anything given the right inputs.
I agree. I think that your mind fills in the blanks all the time. And when you're given part of a picture, you can still see the whole image because we have those kinds of brains. I think in this story and in this case, though, there was manipulation. There were these sacred texts that said that Kahless was going to return. And so the high priests decided, we will make that happen. And they They tricked people. They tricked Worf.
They tricked Kahless.
They tricked Kahless. Yeah, like Kahless wasn't even aware that he wasn't the original Kahless. So that seems like abuse of power to me. You know, if you are the holder of the sacred texts and your texts say that your savior will return to build a new creator, a new savior, that just seems manipulative and wrong to me. I am amazed that Worf in the end came around, and he's sort of the Klingon, the great Klingon compromiser. Let's say that. Like, he is the one who found the balance between the Chancellor and the High Council and the religious castes. It makes you wonder why he becomes such an outcast. Like, this Worf is really the most important person in the whole empire at this point. He's made these huge decisions that affect the entire empire, and he ends up getting shunned eventually, you know. So I am rambling here now, but I think what I'm trying to say is that it just doesn't seem right or fair to the followers of the religion to manipulate them like this.
Well, and they do say, you know, who's to say that him returning wasn't supposed to be through this technology and where we are now through cloning. So they are spinning it, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
They justify themselves. Yeah.
Okay, so here's where I felt that these two episodes were way similar in this theme. And I think I could summarize it by homogeneous society versus an idic society. Because we have here the high priest and Kahless wanting to build or rebuild and revive this pure Klingon society, right? Lift your heart, cleanse your spirit, restore honor to the empire. Like, he has this idea on what the Klingons should be. And, you know, all Klingons do this, and how grand and great and glorious it will be if we are all doing the same thing. As with Masterpiece Society, right? We have these founding fathers. Let's go and create this society and gain perfection. And we have this idea on what it's going to be. But yet that is just stares in the face of homogeneous society and not this idic, not celebrating the diversities. And like, I feel like, is it even possible to have an entire civilization behind one leader, one group of ideals? Or is that just crazy? Is that just a man's desire to think that that's what perfection would be? I'm going to give you just a little bit of context. Listeners, you may know from listening to me over the years that I was born and raised Mormon, LDS. And so the Mormons had their pilgrimage across the United States because they were being persecuted, and they were following one man, Joseph Smith, and his ideas for this new religion, and wanted to go build and be by themselves so that they wouldn't have to put up with everyone else's crap. And I understand, like, you want to be with like-minded people and go and build. And so they were calling this Zion and, you know, Salt Lake City, and everything there that the Mormons did was so that they could be by themselves, that they could worship how they wanted to without being persecuted. So I understand the idea and the desire to have that. However, when you think that, you automatically are removing the advantages of accepting that diversity that others bring to you. So how do we balance the two? Is there a balance? Is it impossible?
These questions are too deep for a Saturday evening.
I'm just so curious because, and I was thinking about it earlier this morning, you know, prepping for this. And I'm like, and sort of going to your point, Joe, of Black Lives Matter. It's like, is the fact that a man's desire, and man, I mean human, don't get all sexist on me, but that a man's desire is to have this society in your interpretation of what it is that the wrong thing to think? Because like when you look at a leader, like a leader has ideas and has morals and has, you know, their idea on what it is that's going to be perfect. I mean, we're coming up to our U.S. elections, and it's choosing a person that is going to lead us that you feel has the best plan. I don't think, well, okay, I can't say that in this election. I'm so sorry, listeners. But I don't think previous leaders have gone into the presidency saying, I'm going to, you know, ruin the presidency. Like everyone who, you know, runs for any office, I hope, wants to lead the society to the best, but it's their interpretation of the best. I'm very confused.
I think you're right. Look, there's approaching 8 billion people on the planet. I don't think all 8 billion people will ever just follow one person's interpretation of what is the right way to go. I think what I strive for is these Star Trek ideals of infinite diversity, that our common goal should be accepting each other and celebrating each other's differences. And that's the common thread. It's being okay with each other regardless of our sexuality or gender identity or religious beliefs or political affiliation. We're all just humans living our short lives on this one little planet, which is the only one that we have at the moment, and we should be okay with that as long as we're not hurting each other and we're looking out for everyone else. I think that's what you're getting at. I also want to know what happened to Joseph Smith's golden plates.
They were taken up by Angel Moroni, so they are no longer on the earth.
I think in the context of Star Trek, one of the issues is, you know, with most episodes, we go in, we come out in 45 minutes, so there's not time to debate opposing philosophies on a single planet. Usually it is our people's philosophy versus the philosophy of the monoculture that they're visiting. So it is interesting in this case, I think, that there are disagreements within the Klingon Empire. Like the Klingons have really up to this point been a monoculture, and we've started to see some cracks in that with the houses and the Durasas versus the Gaurons of the world. But in this episode, we are seeing basically it comes down to science versus religion, right? There is the government versus religion. So we are seeing that perhaps the Klingon Empire is not as united as it appears from the outside, which I think is interesting. And that it takes someone like Worf, who was raised outside the Empire, who, even though he is a full-blooded Klingon warrior male, he grew up in the Federation, so he has an outsider's perspective while still being a part of the culture. So it does put Worf in a very interesting position. Like when they created Worf, they could have made him a Klingon exchange officer, someone who grew up in the Empire, but they didn't. They chose to make him a Klingon raised by humans. So that gives Worf this very unique perspective on both human society and Klingon society. So in a way, the only person who could have made the compromise that was made in this episode is Worf, because he's the only one who has that outsider perspective while remaining part of the culture.
I agree. Yeah. Worf does, they do come to that compromise, and I think it's a good one. Sort of, fits the needs of the religious and the political. But it's interesting, like with, just sort of those themes that you get with the Masterpiece Society and the Rightful Heir, how similar they are of wanting to build this one culture.
Yeah, you're right. Well, do you think it is now time to debate the pros and cons of which episode is going to move on to the next round? Okay.
I say we vote.
The episode, whichever episode wins, it will be facing off against the episode Homeward. So that will be far down the line, but that is what they'll be facing off against. So, is everybody ready to vote? How should we do this?
I just want to say that the costumes are really good in Rightful Heir. Klingon costumes, they're quite fantastic.
I find it very interesting watching Klingon episodes on a large, high-definition television. And seeing how good the makeup really is, like even I would have expected to see more hard edges, but it really does blend really well, and it looks great in high def on a 55-inch television. Okay, voting. Amy, what's your vote?
Okay, so I have thought long and hard, as you can tell by my questions. And
may I remind you that Troy does not appear at all in Rightful Heir. She got cut from the episode.
I know. Based off of the ideas and philosophies and themes that I saw in these episodes, and for the fact that it always comes to mind when I think about, I am going, I know, surprise, the Rightful Heir. I like the continuity, as you said, from the previous, what was that, Birthright? Yeah, that continuity and the whole storyline. I love Worf searching out his, belief in his faith. I think everyone deals with that, so I get that. I feel very bad for Kahless. He gets treated very poorly by Worf, and so we're sympathetic to him. Like all of... Well, I guess outside of Gowron. No, even Gowron, like we get to see multidimensional aspects in their character, because like Gowron is talking to Picard and is like, well, you know how it is to be a leader, and he sees the political angle. And then we have Korath, who's seeing the religious angle, and we have Worf trying to decide and going to Data. And as you mentioned, the costuming is amazing and beautiful. And the setting of Worf's quarters all in candle and a glow, and the history and the culture that we get by seeing the religious aspect, not just the warrior aspect of the Klingon Empire. I really, really enjoy. You know that I love Rightful Heir. I love the story of Troy. I love the idea that, their society was going to be destroyed. And then we have Geordi's visor saving the day. I love that. But in terms of overall Star Trek canon, I'm going with the Rightful Heir.
You could have just said Rightful Heir rather than that hugely long-winded...
But I had to persuade Kevin to vote with me.
So, okay, where I stand is that I really appreciate what Rightful Heir does to Worf's journey and how it influences it. I've said I really like the costumes. I don't enjoy watching Rightful Heir as much as I enjoy watching the Masterpiece Society. And it's interesting to note on IMDb, the Rightful Heir gets 7.3 out of 10 and Masterpiece Society gets 6.8 out of 10. So they're fairly close to each other. I enjoy the Masterpiece Society because of all the science in it and that discussion of kind of genetic engineering and having closed societies. Don't like the costumes. That's why it feels like early TNG. But I think I have to choose, if there were 2 episodes of TNG that existed and I had to choose which one I was going to watch, it would be the Masterpiece Society. I think I have to choose the Masterpiece Society. Kevin, it's up to you.
Okay. Decision is yours.
I agree with Joe that if I was told, here are 2 episodes, you can watch one, which one would you rather watch? I would probably choose the Masterpiece Society. However...
But I could feel it was coming.
However, when it comes to the importance to Star Trek canon, when it comes to the guest stars, Robert O'Reilly is just amazing. And... the actor who plays Kahless, is I love him too. His voice seems so familiar to me. It turns out he's the voice of the opening narration of The Outer Limits. He does that, and he does a lot of animation. I'm sure I know his voice from something in animation. Anyway, the guest stars are great. What puts Rightful Heir over the top for me is the importance of this episode to the future of the franchise and Worf's story going forward and Klingon society going forward. So, while I would rather watch the Masterpiece Society, I am voting for Rightful Heir.
Very interesting. Oh my gosh, that's exciting because it's interesting you brought that up because I would almost watch the Rightful Heir, but I love the Masterpiece Society. So, this has been a great discussion. Thank you.
Incoming transmission.
Well, we would love to hear our listeners' thoughts on our decision. Tell us why we're wrong. Tell us why we're right. Tell us why you agree with us. Tell us why you hate us. And we hope that you'll comment on the United Federation of Podcasts Facebook page or join us in the Federation Council Chambers. You're welcome to start conversations with us or add any general Star Trek info you want to share with the group.
If you'd like to send us an email, you can email the network at contact@ufp.earth, and we might read your email on the show.
Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a star rating and written review. We should probably check those and see if we've had any recently. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching United Federation of Podcasts. That way you won't miss any of our other fine shows like All Good Things. I hear that one's good. Franchise Fatigue, Always Hold On to Arrow, General Quarters, Mickey's Marvels, Infinite Diversity, and Trek Pod. So, Joe, what section of the ship can you be found while out there in the universe?
Well, currently, it's going to be the bike maintenance section where I'll be fabricating the basket to hold my groceries in when I'm out shopping. When I'm not doing that, though, you can find me on the UFP Facebook page, and you can email me at joepodcast@gmail.com. Nobody's emailed me in such a long time, I've forgotten my email address. Or you can tweet me on the Twitter, at JoeyJoe77UK. And Kevin, where can people contact you when you're not in your quarters having some kind of seance trying to bring about some old dead guy?
Well, you can find me on several podcasts. I do True North Nerds with some friends where we talk about general nerdity and geeky fun stuff. I'm very proud of my new podcast, which is called Stage Whispers, which is about live theater in Central Ontario. You can also find me in the Federation Council Chambers. I comment there quite often. And you can find me on Twitter at True North Nerds. So, Amy, where can we find you when you have spent thousands of dollars on candles and have lit up your cavern with them?
Candlelight is so beautiful, so I will be doing that. You can find me right here on the network where I host All Good Things with Patrick Devlin. We talk about all of Star Trek and do episode comparisons. You can find me on Facebook in the Federation Council Chambers, and you can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson.
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/UFPEarth. And you can get a lot of perks. In fact, couple weeks ago, Kevin was hosting a patrons listening roundtable, right?
I was part of a roundtable with some other UFP podcasters, Ken Tripp, Chris Tribuzio, and Tony Robinson, and we had a great little conversation, and that should be in the dedicated feed for patrons very soon.
Yeah, so lots of perks. Would love to have you join the team.
We'd like to recognise our executive producers, Brandon Shimatala, Ken Tripp, Zach Moore and Tony Robinson. We would also like to thank Zach Tripp for our opening and closing music and Tony Robinson for our amazing artwork.
Thank you for being aboard the Galaxy class, and until next time,
turn a disadvantage into an advantage.
Ye Bombay!
Genetic manipulation or not, nobody's perfect.
Engage.
This has been a production of MTMR Media Works.